Welcome to episode 85 of the Triple Duck Polymath Podcast. Hope y'all are doing okay. This week I have with me somebody I had the privilege to meet recent con some years ago. I thought, we meet again? I have a bad memory. Anyway, she is Brigid for some reason, Brigid Fitch of the Holy Vlog. Jesus. Holy Crap Vlogcast. How's it going? Sorry.
That's going good.
So, first of all, why don't you tell everybody a little about yourself?
Well, like you said, I'm Brigid Fitch from Holy Crap the Vlogcast, and I met you at ReasonCon actually a couple of times, I think. And were you at ApostaCon or something?
No.
No.
It was a Skepticon. I don't remember.
Skepticon? I don't know. I've seen you a few times. But anyway, I am coming to you from somewhere undisclosed in the Midwest.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, me too. I've been trying to get out for years. Oh my God. And anyway, I'm glad to be here with you.
Yeah, I'm glad you agreed to come on. Especially for kind of a difficult subject. First of all, I wanted to mention that we're both going to be at American Atheist Convention, which is coming up next. Is it next? Yeah, next weekend, Easter weekend. And we'll be doing a podcast thing. So
yes, come on out and see us.
I guess it is. Yeah, it should be cool. So anyway, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm having issues on my so yeah, let's kind of just delve right into it. I wanted to have you on because of your experiences with mental illness. You've suffered from mental illness and still do, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to really say anything. I'm just going to let you tell your story. I might jump in every now and again, but if you just want to start off wherever you're comfortable.
Okay. Like you said, I do suffer from mental illness. I have for years. First memories that I ever have of being depressed was when I was 7. It's the first time I'd ever thought about killing myself, and it was really for no reason. Nothing bad had happened. I just saw some knives on the table and thought, I wonder what it'd be like if I killed myself. But after talking to some relatives, they had observed that even as a toddler, I seemed like I was very, very withdrawn and subdued, and just never did seem like a happy child. And when I was in 7th or 8th grade, my dad was diagnosed as having what they used to call manic depression back in the 70s. And unfortunately, I inherited that from him. We didn't know it at the time. That usually isn't diagnosed until years later. But the first time I ever underwent treatment was for depression when I was 19. And the only drugs that they had available back then were tricyclics and antipsychotics. And all that did was make me feel like a zombie. I didn't feel anything. And so years later when Prozac came out, they put me on that. I did really well on Prozac for a while, but then it started triggering some episodes of mania. And so when I was around 35 or so, I ended up getting diagnosed as having bipolar 2 disorder. So the thing that really sucks about having bipolar 2 is whenever the mania is coming on, I can actually feel it. I'm cognizant of it, but there's nothing I can do to stop it, which is kind of scary. But I am on medications for that, and that does help control that. And while you're actually going into a mania, it can feel really good and you feel really productive and you get a lot of things done. But the crash afterwards is horrible. I would go for days and days without sleep, and getting a lot of things done, and then all of a sudden not be able to function at all and be in bed for a week or so, not able to get up to do anything. And if it weren't for having the Family Medical Leave Act, I would not be employed. That's just all there is to that. But I do still go to therapy and take several medications. One of them is a mood stabilizer, and also take antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds. But having a stable cocktail really does seem to help me with that. So I'm doing pretty well.
That's definitely good. I know there's some people who deal with this and aren't able to control it as well as you can, and they definitely have problems staying, I guess, productive in society or whatever. Of course, that's a whole other subject we'll get into as far as how we treat mental illness in this country and how we treat it or don't treat it, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
Um,
The biggest struggle I have right now is with PTSD. And I think that you said that you've had some issues with that yourself.
well, I know somebody who had issues
That's
with that.
somebody who has. And the bad thing about PTSD is you never know when it's going to hit you. Just something out of the blue can hit you and get you triggered. And I know that triggered has, become a catch-all term for somebody said something that upset me for a couple of hours, and so I'm triggered, and that's not what that means at all. Whenever something happens and I'm triggered, I don't sleep for 4 or 5 days. I start hallucinating. I can't self-soothe or calm down or anything else, and it's horrible. But there are certain things that will trigger me, like mass shootings will do it, because I've been involved in a mass shooting. I didn't do it, but I was witness to it many years ago. So that has a tendency to do that. Or really outrageous cases of spousal abuse can be a trigger. So I try to avoid my triggers, and as long as I can avoid them, I do really well. And for those times when I can't avoid them, there's Ativan.
Yeah, is that even like in like that like Adderall or something like that?
Ativan's kind of like a Xanax or a Valium or something like that.
Oh,
Um, it usually starts working within 10 to 15 minutes. And so if I really do get triggered and get into trouble, it acts pretty quickly. And I use that in case of emergencies.
well, it's hard for a lot of people, I guess, to imagine what you're going through, and so I think it's easy for people to just to write it off as like, well, she's just crazy or something like that. You know, empathy doesn't seem to be a strong suit of a lot of people. Um, let's backtrack a little bit. You said in the beginning that you you began at 7 years old, kind of having these depression issues and the suicidal thoughts. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that part it seems is more chemically based. Would you say?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's no. It was hereditary. It seems like it doesn't seem. I don't know. Did you have like a normal childhood or whatever?
I mean, as far as childhoods go, yeah. But with my dad being, diagnosed, and on my mom's side, she also had a couple of sisters that had bipolar disorder. And, I think that I just got screwed from both sides of the family tree.
Yeah.
So, woohoo, yay me.
Yeah, I don't have anything. The only thing I have like generalized anxiety and like I have panic attacks, which I haven't had problems with that panic attacks in a long time, but mostly mine's anxiety. But it's nothing near the sort of thing you're going through. So I guess it was a relief when you were coming up when you finally realized what was going on. How would you say your father was again when he was diagnosed?
He started taking medication, as far as I recall, when he was about 30. Um, And for a long time, they didn't know what his was. He was being treated for depression, but his ended up being, bipolar. And, looking back, the symptoms were there, all along for him too. He just would have a lot of energy, way too much energy, and he'd forget to eat, and he'd be up for days, just doing all sorts of stuff like waxing everybody's car in the neighborhood, cutting everybody's yards just because he had to have something to do. And then he would crash for days and days. And then the other side of that, he would get very suicidal because he was so depressed whenever he came down and crashed.
And you've gone through the same thing, obviously.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Was there any incidents where you thought, like, that was it? Like, you, I don't know, called emergency, or like you were just thought you were going to die or something like that?
A couple of years ago. And I didn't actually call, my daughter did. Because, she was worried for me. And so, I had to make a nice little trip to the hospital. That was always fun. Food sucked, But
Yeah.
it's just one of those things.
So so I guess you're dealing, I mean, you don't have a choice. You have to deal with it. But,
Yeah.
I mean, is it something you can just, I mean, as far as you're aware of it, is it something that you think about a lot when it's not going on? Or is it just something you've learned to kind of put in the back of your mind? Or
Well, I mean, it's something that I have to pay attention to daily as far as making sure that I stay on a regular schedule, get enough sleep, um, get enough to eat. Any kind of a variation in a schedule can trigger some mania, and that will start an episode. So I'm very cognizant of that. And that's really, I mean, between that and the meds, that keeps me stable.
so you've learned kind of how to deal with it, and you, like you said, diet, and just kind of paying attention to what's going on in your head.
I do. And one of my telltale signs that I'm about to start into a manic episode is if I'm on Facebook and I start typing out the Gettysburg Address, which is what I call it, where I start typing out these massive paragraphs with no paragraph breaks or anything, then I know that it's coming. So, I mean, at least I'm aware, and that's a good thing.
Would you have, do you find them that you, I don't know,
You're
I'm
breaking up.
sure,
Hmm?
I'm sure something has happened. I'm the frequent when it happens. Yeah.
Yeah, you broke up there.
You
I didn't.
there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, that's, I don't know what's going on. Has this happened in public to you
Oh
before?
yeah.
And like people, yeah.
Oh yeah. I
Um,
was. You know who Nate Phelps is?
yeah.
I was at a con. I think it was a pasta con. It was either, yeah, it was a pasta con. And Nate Phelps was speaking there, and he started talking about, his story of growing up in Westboro Baptist Church and all that. And I was familiar with his story, but then he started talking about what happened to his mom and what Fred Phelps had done to his mom. And that was part of the story I was not familiar with and had never heard before. And that triggered the crap out of me. And I just fled. I got up and I ran out of the auditorium, and I was just weeping uncontrollably, and I couldn't breathe. And I ran, bam, right into Seth Andrews. And I was so mortified. And so I turned away and ran from him into Daryl Ray. And he was just looking at me like, what the hell do I do with this? And so then JT Everhard grabbed me and he says, are you okay? And all I could do was just go, I am not okay. I am not okay. I am not okay. And there was nothing I could do. I just fell to pieces. And there's all these people that I know that are just staring at me. And that's when I, learned the importance of taking Ativan with me just in case. Because that had been probably, 10 years before that time since I had been triggered, and I had no way of knowing that was coming.
I guess we didn't talk about the PTSD part. What triggered? What is PTSD? Something that, well, obviously something that happened to you. Did you want to talk about that?
Well, I have it from two sources. One of them was back in the 80s, when McDonald's shootings were a thing. Google that. For some reason, back in the 80s, mass shootings took place at either McDonald's or Luby's cafeterias. I don't know why. It just happened to be a thing. And on Labor Day weekend back in 87, I had stopped at a McDonald's on the way home. I was in the military and I was driving back to Memphis. And a man came up to a McDonald's and started shooting women. And I came very close to getting shot. And that was the first time I'd ever seen people killed, right in front of me. And so that kind of a situation freaks me out. I cannot go to a McDonald's. And if I go out to eat, I cannot sit by a window because I don't want to see people get shot. I don't want to know. So, things like that. If I ran into somebody open carrying that I wasn't expecting and it was in a crowded place like a McDonald's, I would probably lose my shit. The other thing is my first husband was extremely abusive to me. And you've heard stories of, women locked in soundproof basement kind of a thing. It was that bad. So without going into, all the details, I had PTSD from that. I had years of therapy. So when Nate started talking about things that his dad had done to his mom, those were some of the same things that had been done to me, and it just flipped me out because I wasn't expecting to hear it.
So there's certain, you know what your triggers are for the most
Oh yeah,
part, right?
yeah, absolutely.
And I guess talking about, like you said, mass shootings obviously is going to be a problem. But would you say
Mm-hmm.
anything violent? Just like violent
Violence in
incidents?
general, no, not really. Just mass shootings. If one happens, I do not watch the news. I cannot watch the footage and all that because that will, trigger it. Reading about it won't. Watching it in real time, yes. Or hearing someone talking about it, yes.
I can't. Okay, so you got to kind of be aware of what's going on, and if you hear about it, obviously with everything all the social media we have right now,
Yeah.
I think you could pretty much avoid actually seeing it because every time something like that happens, it pops all over your Facebook feed.
It does, but as long as I'm not watching news coverage, of them giving a blow by blow and all that, then I'm okay. But if I lived in a state that had open carry everywhere and I was confronted with people carrying every time I went to a Walmart or went to the gas station or whatever, that would freak me out because I wouldn't know if they were going to shoot me or not. The guy that started shooting at McDonald's had been walking around with, a couple of weapons, and we didn't know what his intentions were until he started shooting. It was in Arkansas. People went hunting. We didn't think anything about it.
Well, obviously, it's come more to light now that we practically have mass shootings. It seems like every other
All the
day.
time now. Yeah. Um, so, it's just if someone's going to carry, I would prefer not to see it. I know people conceal carry all the time around me, and I don't have a problem with that. I just don't want to see it,
Right.
especially when you're doing it just to be a dick and intimidate people.
Yeah, that really infuriates me.
Oh, it does me too.
It's just like, we're not going to get in the whole gun debate or whatever, but I do realize that there are people who carry, just people who would be considered responsible, I guess.
Hmm.
And they don't. I've talked to some guys or some people who are like just normal guys. It's like, yeah, those guys are total assholes, and they shouldn't be allowed to have weapons in the first place because they're just like making up for something. They got small dicks or whatever. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, the people that are carrying something that big, slung over their back, they're doing it just to mess with people. I think, just to show how tough they are. I mean,
yeah,
if
I think
somebody's if somebody's walking around with a 38 on their hip, that's not the same thing to me.
yeah, I think we've got kind of this Yahoo problem where people are just carrying around guns and they think they're sovereign citizens or whatever. And I think Trump has encouraged a lot of this kind of uber white masculinity or something like that.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
know
kind
down
of
here it's
disturbing.
bad.
Yeah, it's pretty disturbing. I mean, the South, of course, is even worse than most parts of the country. Um, it's definitely something. Of course, this isn't a new phenomenon. Of course, you remember the Bundys, uh, that
Hmm.
whole thing.
Yeah,
Then, of course, Ruby Ridge. These kind of white militiamen types have always been an issue. Um,
yeah,
but we need to concentrate on the dirty, the dirty Muslims, those terrorists. Yeah, you know, because they're the ones causing all the major problems, not crazy white supremacists, which, like I said, have been seem to be coming out of the woodwork lately, and I think those are the ones that scare me more than anything else, especially here. Um,
yeah.
I live, I blend in a little bit because of my awesome beard, but so I get to see some of that. I live kind of a redneck suburb, sort of, and so I see some of these guys, and it's just it's really frightening. I don't know. That just like I said, they've been emboldened, and so they feel it's okay for them to say and do shit that maybe normally they wouldn't.
Yeah,
And I feel like people like you and people who are triggered by such things, um, are they're really being hurt by this. I mean, among other people, of course, but
yeah.
um,
I mean,
so
I can
you,
shoot. I mean, I'm prior military. I've shot an M16 before. I've shot a 38 before
yeah, that's right. So you're familiar with
with
shooting a gun.
guns. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like you're some snowflake or something like that.
No, and I'm a pretty damn good shooter too.
See, so I mean, there's one stereotype knocked down right there. Just because not all of those who are triggered, are just like they imagine they're all liberal snowflakes or something that politically correct, blah blah blah, whatever the stereotype is.
Yeah, I'm not one of those, but yes, another consideration too about, if I lived in a state like Texas where everybody was open carrying, if I happened to walk around a corner and see somebody that had something that looked threatening to me and I wasn't sure of their intention, I'd be afraid of shooting them, of overreacting and killing them. And then I would have to live with that just because they freaked me the hell out.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, I mean, do you carry?
No, not, I mean, no, I don't for that reason.
Oh, okay, okay,
I mean,
okay,
I have one, but I don't carry it with me 24/7.
okay.
But if somebody
Well,
tried to get in here, I'd put a hole in them that big.
well, all right.
Just saying.
No, I hear you. So other than that, I mean, I'm sure there's other instances where you've been triggered unintentionally. Um, would you say it happens often, or
Not
just
really.
every?
Just, I mean, not really. I know where my problems are, and so I do my best to avoid those. And if I consume news, I try to do it responsibly. But
That's
if I
fair.
hear that there's a spate of mass shootings, then I just avoid the news for several days.
Yeah, I'm sure New Zealand was something you avoided pretty
Oh yeah,
strenuous.
yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, that's least they're doing something about it, I guess. But, so PTSD. As far as treatment, what kind of treatment did you go through to try to help you get through that?
Well, I mean, I've got backup medication that I take in case of emergency. I'm still going to therapy every couple of weeks, trying to work on desensitization and cognitive behavioral therapy and things like that. But and unfortunately, I'm always going to have issues with that. Or at least that's what my therapist thinks. You
Well,
know,
I've heard.
I mean, you can get better, but once you've had issues with that, it's hard to unlearn those issues, those reflexes.
Yeah, I've heard that you're not ever able to completely rid yourself of it. You just have to figure out ways to cope with it.
Yeah, you have to. Like one thing that used to bother my husband is if he reaches towards me, like to give me a hug or something, I automatically flinch, but that's because I was abused. And that used to really bother him because he's like, I would never hurt you. And you know that. And I'm like, yes, I know that, but I couldn't help it. It was just a reflex. Somebody reaches towards me and I flinch.
Yeah,
And, it's 30 years ago. And I still haven't gotten past that. I probably never will.
yeah, it takes a lot. I think it takes a lot of understanding on loved ones' part, or friends, or something, somebody you're close to understand that uh, what you're going through and kind of your condition. I mean, have you lost friends and stuff because of this?
Hmm. Oh, yeah.
Well, that sucks. I mean, but they presumably knew what you were going through beforehand.
Yeah, but to actually see it in motion is kind of scary to people. And usually if they actually see me have a meltdown like that, they have a tendency to disappear. And so then I clean up the mess and until the next time. But
I
at
mean,
least I find out who my really good friends are because they're still here.
yeah, I'm of two minds on that. So I guess it's one of those things where you don't know how you react to something until it actually happens
Mm-hmm.
in front of you. And on the one hand, I'm like, well, fuck you. You weren't really somebody's friend if that was something that could just, push you away. But by the same token, I'm like, well, what if they had been through something, or, something they can't deal with, that sort of thing. And so I don't know if I would necessarily blame them, but maybe I
Yeah.
would, as far as, I don't know. It just seems like to at least keep contact, even if maybe you realize you can't deal with being there
Mm-hmm.
when it happens. It seems like you could at least keep in contact or something.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you know who Rich and Deanna Joy Lyons are or not.
Rich
Yeah,
Lyons, yeah.
Rich Lyons. Um, they did like, was it Living After Faith? But anyway, they also witnessed this epic meltdown that I had after Nate's speech. And Deanna was great. She helped get me through the weekend and, got me all calmed down and in a good place and everything. But she and Rich both had to cut off all contact with me after that because I was triggering him. And as soon as they got back to Seattle, he ended up having to go on a psych hold because of me.
Oh
And can you
no.
imagine how that made me feel that I did that to him?
Yeah, that's
That was devastating.
yeah. I can only imagine. I mean, somebody you care about. I mean, and
Yeah,
I guess you feel guilty, even though it wasn't anything you could control. You know.
yeah. I felt guilty as hell about that. That I did that to him.
So let me ask you, as far as this desensitization, can you tell me sort of what that involves?
Well, I mean, some of it is doing, like visualization exercises. Some of it is like reading short stories to try to, not throw myself full into it, but just get little bits and pieces. Um, I still can't go to McDonald's though, but I'm not missing anything. They suck anyway.
Yeah, they suck. Don't worry.
um, Now, as far as like tornadoes, tornadoes used to scare the hell out of me, and I think that's pretty normal. I've
Yeah.
been in one, came very close to dying. Um, so I
Yeah.
ended up taking weather spotting classes, and that helped immensely. So if the weather starts getting bad, I can go outside now and look and know exactly what I'm looking at. And I'm like,
Oh,
that.
so you've been through some stuff,
Oh
just
yeah,
generally.
oh yeah.
So this therapy you're going through, I mean, it helps with coping, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. Of course, you still need the medication, I guess, kind
Oh
of.
yeah. I'll always have to take medication the rest of my life. And the only bad thing about that is, if I happen to lose my insurance or pre-existing conditions, become a thing again, I'm toast.
Yeah. I was going to ask you one more thing.
Okay.
At this section, um, what would your advice be to people who are dealing with PTSD and how they can kind of maybe cope with things a little better?
Definitely seek professional help. It's not something that I think people can handle on their own. I don't think they should try to handle it on their own because it's a huge, horrible problem. And, if you aren't able to get someone to work with you, it would, you can make it much worse. So, nothing wrong with seeking help.
So just make sure you get help. And
Make sure you get help. And, sometimes if you need a short term medication to help you sleep while you're working through it, ask for it. Don't feel bad about asking for help.
yeah,
Ambien is great stuff, especially when you're having nightmares and you can't sleep. That'll knock you right out. You won't remember anything you dream. So,
that's probably
yeah,
probably
for
better.
for a short term, 2 or 3 weeks, there's no shame.
Yeah. All right, so let's you kind of started in on it. Let's switch gears to the issue of insurance and kind of how difficult it is for people. I mean, of course, generally speaking, in this country, health insurance is shit, but mental illness seems like it's even more difficult. Have you
Well,
had have you had problems with that? I'm sure you have.
well, I know before they passed the Mental Health Parity Act years ago, probably 20 years ago, um, they used to only cover mental health at like 50%. You could get 10 visits a year. It was really shitty coverage. They didn't treat it like they did medical conditions. And when they passed the Parity Act, they had to start treating it like any other medical condition. So there wasn't any limit on visits and things like that. Um, if you don't have any insurance, there used to be free clinics you could go to, not so much anymore. A lot of those funding got cut. Um, some of the medications are really expensive. If you don't have insurance, one of the medications that I'm taking, if you have to pay cash for it, the cash price on it is $1,438 a month.
Sweet Jesus.
Yeah. Even with my insurance, I still have to pay 250 a month just for that one.
Which one is this? That's the
Latuda.
Oh yeah. I see the commercials for that, yeah.
It's really expensive. And there's 5 different medications that I'm on, so to keep everything all nice and stable. So if I lost my insurance coverage, I don't know how I would afford to pay for that. And if that became a pre-existing condition, I couldn't even go to therapy anymore because that wouldn't be covered. And that would be a bad thing.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly. Of course, we all know, as a general rule, the healthcare system in this country sucks. Just to put
Yeah,
it, to put it mildly, as they
it
say.
does. Yeah, it does. And unfortunately, I think we have a lot of people that don't have access to it. A lot of the homeless people have mental illness uh, problems, and a lot of them are veterans.
Yep, that's right. And they love to send you to war, but they don't seem to care as much when you come back and you need help.
Exactly.
Um, that's a whole nother thing that really just pisses me off. Um, and a lot of times, people who have mental illness, since there's really nowhere, we haven't, well, had the will, I guess, to be able to really deal with mental illness. There's no real protocol for. I mean, a lot of people just end up in jail because they
Hmm.
don't know where the hell else to put them.
Yeah.
There there doesn't seem to be any sort of system for dealing with people with, with chronic mental illness who happen to be indigent or underinsured, which is almost everybody's underinsured probably.
Hmm.
So I mean, that's another issue, and I don't see that getting better anytime soon.
Mm-mm. And sometimes that's the only treatment they can get is if they go to jail. That's not
Right.
right.
And even if they do, it's just they're overwhelmed. The doctors are overwhelmed. They can only do so much.
Mm.
And just the whole situation. And so it, like you said, pre-existing conditions would be an issue. Difficulty at medication being expensive. Is your therapy pretty well covered, or do you have issues with that too, as far as costs?
I mean, it's covered. I have to pay $30 every time I go in to see him, and then I have to see the psychiatrist every 3 months for a medication check just to make sure that my medications are doing okay and I'm not having any problems. And if we need to tweak something, he'll tweak it. Um, but even $30 a pop runs into money if you go in once a week.
Yeah, I mean, I go. I don't go that much for the psychiatrist. I go like every once in a while. I see a therapist every 2 weeks, and yeah, it's about $30 a pop.
Yeah.
Now the therapist, I don't necessarily need a therapist. I just started re-going, really just started going at all recently, and I find it helps me. But I know in your case, I don't. It's not an option. I mean, you pretty much have to go, right?
Yeah, I mean, if I want to stay employed, yeah. And being employed is good. It helps
Or,
for my insurance.
yeah. So I mean, it's an instance where I think, of course, that's an argument for universal or Medicare for all, or whatever you want to call it. But
Hmm.
that's another subject. Um, so even with insurance, you still end up having to pay a lot. And you said it was 200, what, 250 a month for the Latuda or whatever.
That's what my copay is on it. Hmm.
Yeah. Um, do you know other people who are going through a similar situation? You've kind of seen what it's like when if you don't have coverage or your coverage isn't as good.
I haven't lately. I do know of somebody who lives in Pennsylvania who can't get access to the medications that she needs. But that's because she's on Medicaid, and they will only allow her 4 prescriptions a month. And since she can only get 4, she has to pick the 4 most important. And so she has problems with blood pressure and things like that. So there are things where if she doesn't take medication, it will kill her. So she's not able to take any mental health medications because she's having to take things for diabetes and blood pressure and things like that. And that's horrible that she's having to go unmedicated.
Yeah, there's no excuse for that, and that's with
Well,
Medicaid.
she's indigent, so that's just the way that it goes. They say 4 prescriptions, that's all you can have. And so she's like, do I want to die from diabetes or do I want to end up jumping off of a building because I think I can fly? You know, just awful.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. I don't really. I mean, like I said, I have mild stuff. There are people who like would lose. I mean, they like schizophrenics. If they didn't take their medication, I know my brother has issues with schizophrenia,
Yeah.
and if he didn't take his medication, I don't. He's already not in great shape anyway, but I don't know what would happen to him. Um. So, and also there's a stigma. So, have you encountered? I mean, I've encountered several. I mean, just online, I've seen so many people. Just and even now, I mean, even with more awareness, it seems like it's gotten a little better. But people just still have this stigma of mental illness, like it's just something. Well, you just get over it or
Yeah,
something.
just
Go.
just think on the bright side. Just snap out of it.
Yeah, and that. And some people, okay, maybe they really don't know, and maybe you can educate them, but and that's okay. I can maybe understand that. But there are people who just, even if they get educated, they just don't, they really don't care. You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, people don't care about anything as long as it doesn't pertain to them. So,
yeah, empathy seems to be in short supply
mhm.
in this country in general, I think.
And I know
And
around work and things like that, I've been pretty open as far as with my supervisors and things like that, what my issues are, and figured if I don't advocate for myself, no one else is going to advocate for me.
yeah, do you run into resistance? And when you tell people that you're mentally ill or whatever, you suffer from mental illness.
I haven't yet. I've just been very upfront about it, but also in a humorous way. I tell them that I come by it, honestly, through my genes. I said between, a couple of aunts, my dad, and my cousin Britney Spears, which she is my fifth cousin.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I'm like, hey, Britney Spears is my fifth cousin, so this is for real.
Yeah, I mean, it's good that you really haven't come across any of that in real life. I guess, of course, you see it enough online, and
Yeah, I mean, I did with
most.
my first husband, but we won't talk about that.
Oh well, yeah.
He tried to cast demons out of me, and all that bullshit.
Oh, well, that sounds fun. I do
Well,
recall hearing your story regarding that a long time
yeah,
ago. But
yeah,
we won't get into it right.
no.
But it was
Saying be
it was
healed,
pretty bad.
not work. If
No,
only it were
yeah,
that easy.
and not that people are thinking that necessarily, but they do think it's some kind of, you're just supposed to get over it. Like, go take a walk, or the great outdoors is a great antidepressant, or, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, go hang out with a friend, whatever. And they just don't understand that that's not, I mean, would you say that to a diabetic?
Mm-mm,
You know, just
mm-mm.
go walk it off. Oh, okay.
Yeah, or somebody
Uh,
with a broken leg or anything like that. My brain's broken and
yeah, and even that,
biochemical. And it's, people have, down days from time to time where they, feel kind of and it's not the same thing. It is not the same thing.
yeah, I think there has been some progress on that, like I said, but the people still just, in some instances, just like they think depression's like the blue, you're just down or
Hmm.
something. And it's like, no, you haven't really been depressed, have you? I mean, like, so depressed that you don't even feel like moving, or you just can't see any way out. There's like, you know,
Oh
you don't
yeah.
even feel like you don't want to live,
Like I've spent
stuff
days
like that.
just doing nothing but staring at the wall. Didn't even have the energy to listen to music, even though music would probably have made me feel better. Just couldn't put forth the effort to even listen, which is really sad.
Yeah, like I said, I think a lot of people see that more, and I think one of the things that help are people like you who kind of just put it out there, like, hey, I'm have a mental illness, and it's just, that's who I am, and just present it like be out front with it, and I think that helps a lot with destigmatization. I can say that destigmatization.
Well, I mean, it might make it a little less scary to people. I mean, people get these ideas of what mental illness looks like, and it's like, hi, it looks like me. It could look like your next door neighbor. The person sitting across from you at work. It doesn't have to be scary.
Yeah, and that goes. I mean, of course, you could say that's the same tactic or the same method that a lot of um, marginalized groups, I guess you could say the same thing. I know
Mhm.
LGBT folks, that was one of the things. I mean, they're next when you start humanizing people and realizing there's some alien monster or something, then people start realizing, hey, these are real people with real problems, and they're like me, and they need help sometimes. So I mean, I think that's important. I mean, I know I try to do that on my Facebook, or I try to always bring it up as much as possible. Not everybody's able to do it,
Yeah.
but I think people who are able to do it should do it. I mean, it's not like I said, it's not easy for everybody, but I mean, if you're willing to put forth that effort, I think it really helps with people realizing that it's not something to be afraid of.
Yeah.
Um, so you've come a long way, wouldn't you say, from when the PTSD? How long ago did this happen? The 80s? Is that what you said? 30 years ago?
When I first developed it,
Yeah.
87.
All right. So would you say you've come a long way since then?
Yeah, I think I have. I think I have. Um, because for about 5 years, I mean, I couldn't even think for myself. I was always looking over my shoulder. I was hyper vigilant. Um, took a lot of work to get past that. Yeah, about 5 years of going weekly, to therapy.
Yeah, hypervigilance, I've heard, seems to be a major symptom of PTSD.
Yeah.
You're always looking over your shoulder. You're always kind of watching people to see what their intent is. Um, and it can be difficult for people to deal with, I guess, especially people you care about, even if you don't mean to be, and they even if they understand what's going on, sometimes maybe they'll get their you know feelings hurt or something. But they just have to realize that's just the way you are. Or whatever.
Yeah.
I
That's
think it
gotten a
takes a special
lot better. If people come up
Yeah,
behind
I
me
mean,
now, it doesn't scare me so much.
well, that's yeah, progress has been made, but I'm sure there's still times when like you said, of course, that was kind of a major event, but I'm sure there's still times you kind of get jumpy, and like you said, your husband, even now, he tries to hug you, and you kind of flinch a little bit or
Hmm.
whatever.
Yeah.
So, but I'm sure uh, having somebody with you that can understand what you're going through and is able to deal with that, I think is probably and also a big help along with everything else. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
I mean, this guy sounds awesome. I mean,
Well, I've been married 25 years and he hasn't had to bail me out of jail yet, so that's a good thing.
well, yeah. I mean, it depends what you're in jail for. I
Oh,
guess.
that's true too.
I mean, sometimes it may be, maybe justified. Just saying,
I try to behave. Always try to behave.
So I mean, you're going to a big event next week, next weekend, yeah, Easter weekend. Do you have to make special, like, prepare yourself when you're around that many people, like the potential for triggers and coming from all directions or whatever?
Usually, no. Most of these people that are going are, part of my family of choice. I'm used to them. And I've either seen them at cons before, or I know them from Facebook, or both. And, I feel like I feel safe. So,
Okay, so
yeah, it's a good place for me.
feeling safe is definitely, in general, I think it's a good thing, but especially if you're suffering from PTSD, it seems like it's almost essential for your mental well-being.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, as you said, there's a lot of people there. You probably know a hell of a lot more people than I do. Um,
Yeah. And
so
I've got good friends there that if anybody messes with me, my friends would kick their asses.
I mean, you're not wrong,
I'm not wrong. No.
So I mean, there's no shame in that. I mean, I don't know what use I would be, but I like intimidating. Maybe that would help.
Well, Aaron Rock can be pretty intimidating.
Oh, Aaron Rod.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
that
really there.
dude. Whew,
He's
that dude
tall.
ain't no joke. Yeah, he's huge. I stood up. I got a picture with him at ReasonCon. Was it Skepticon? I can't remember. I think it was ReasonCon. But that dude's big.
Hmm.
He's not just tall. He's just like a big dude.
Yeah.
And he can he drinks stouts and all. He's hot, just red hot pepper and shit.
Uh
Yeah, he's not the kind of dude I'd want to fuck with.
huh.
So I think he'd be a pretty good bodyguard, I think, for anybody. Really. I
Oh
mean,
yeah. Yeah.
I don't think he's gonna have to worry about it there though. Um,
Yeah.
I've
I've been
never
to
been.
a lot of cons, and I've never had a problem with anybody.
Yeah, I've never been to this particular one. Mostly because I can't afford it. But how
Hmm.
lucky I'm.
Yeah.
Uh, but I'm looking forward to it. I mean, there seems to be some good speakers. It looks like they're diversifying a little bit, and that's probably good. Oh, there is good, I should say, because there seems to be a realization that maybe we don't need as many white guys. Maybe we could just kind of get some other people in there. Maybe you know some
Yeah.
women, some people of color. I mean, and I think that's great. I think you have to do that in order to kind of keep the movement going. You can't just always rely on white guys because
Yeah.
eventually there's other people, and diversity is becoming more of a thing, and that makes me happy. That's something I really like. Of course, there's
Yeah.
a
Can't remember.
bad.
This is my third or fourth American Atheist convention, but something like that.
Oh, really? I didn't know you'd been that
Hmm.
many times.
Yeah.
Okay, and of
So.
course you've been all over the place. So. I mean, well, I'm sorry,
It's
the
okay.
cons.
I took it the good way.
Okay, because like it make it sound horrible. Like you've been around, haven't you? Oh, yeah. So,
Yeah, the last one was
is there
fun.
anything kind of which one was the last one?
Well, the last one that I went to was in Memphis, and Debbie Goddard brought her acoustic guitar with her. and Greg Jensen had harmonica, and Matt Dillahunty had a ukulele, and JT Everhart played piano. And so we were out in the lobby at 2 o'clock in the morning having little sing-alongs. It was great.
That does sound pretty awesome. That's the best stuff when it's like kind of, just spontaneous like that.
Yeah, and especially when you get to the second verse and nobody can remember the words and you're just making stuff up.
Yeah, to me, those are the best parts of the convention, or when you just can kind of hang out and talk to
Yeah.
people and just have a good time, kind of fellowshipping, which is I'm claiming that word. I'm
Good for
taking it.
you. Take it back. Take it back.
Because everybody needs community. It's good to have a community, especially when I've enjoyed meeting people. I haven't been to many as you have, I'm sure, but I've been to a couple, and they're good people. They're nice, and you can have solid conversations with them.
Yeah.
And that's what I enjoy the most, I think. So kind of as we wrap things up, can you kind of just give a overview of, if you could say, like I said before when it came to PTSD, but in general, if there's something you could tell people who wasn't really familiar with maybe mental illness in general, and how you could like help people who are going through that, and uh kind of the how they could talk to their friends about it and spread the word or whatever.
Um, hmm. Yeah, I mean, first thing, if you're having any kind of issues, find somebody to talk to, even if it's just a friend, and go from there. Gosh, I'm drawing a blank. Uh, there's also organizations out there like the National Alliance for Mental Illness, and AMI, but you can go to them, and they're a good resource for looking at local therapists and things like that. Um, there's also the Secular Therapist Project that so God, I'm going blank. Thanks.
Sorry, I know you're talking about that.
Um, but it was an outcropping from the Clergy Project that Daryl Ray started. But if you need a therapist and you're looking for one that's not religiously based, the Secular Therapist Project can hook you up with one in your area, and in some cases get you one for free that can do like a teleconference via Skype session with you if you need it. But don't feel like you're ever alone, because you're not. There are lots of us out there who have mental illness. And if there's anything that I personally can do for you, let me know. You can find me on Facebook, Brigid Fitch. And you can also find me on my blog at brigidfitch2112.wordpress.com. Or you can email me at brigid.fitch2112@gmail.com, and I do answer back.
I forgot you're a Rush fan.
Yeah. What can I say?
Which is fine. I saw 2112 when they did the full album in concert.
Oh, yeah, that was awesome. That was amazing.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
And you have to look
I
behind
enjoyed
me.
that.
Got my Rush 40 bag and my vinyls.
Oh, you do have vinyls. That's Test for Echo right there. I can see it.
Yeah, it is. And I've got Rush and Grace Under Pressure, and what else is peeping back there? Progressive Steel. Don't judge.
No judgment. No
And
judgment.
here's the tattoo. Grace Under Pressure.
Okay, that's out of control. That's a bit much.
Well, it's a good reminder to me. Yeah,
I
it
know.
was taken from the Hemingway quote, "Courage is grace under pressure." And so every time I start spazzing out, I look at my little wrist and I'm like, yes, I can be Grace under pressure.
I didn't know that was a quote.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's where they came from.
okay, I didn't. Okay, that's something I need to check out then.
Well,
Definitely.
that's where Neil Peart got it. Was courage is grace under pressure. Ernest Hemingway.
And he should know. God, the shit he's been through. Jesus.
Oh yeah.
Jesus. All right. Well, we could go. We could start a whole nother conversation about Rush, probably.
Yeah, and the Getty Lee. Blah blah blah.
I'm gonna need you to wear a Rush. You're gonna have to wear a Rush shirt when I see you.
At the con?
Yeah,
I can do that.
just because I want
Yeah.
a picture with a Rush shirt.
Yeah, I
That's,
can do that.
all
Well, this was
right.
fun.
Yeah, appreciate you coming on. I hope I didn't get too personal or whatever. Um,
Well, I hope I didn't blab too much.
no, I mean that's what you're here for. That's why I wanted to have you on because I think it's something an important subject, and
Yeah.
it's I don't think it still doesn't get enough attention, and there's still too much stigma around it, and the treatment is still shit on top of everything else. But of course, mental illness treatment is still just horrible on its own. So
Mm-hmm.
that's that's something that needs to be brought to the fore, I think.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, I'll let you go, but again, thanks for coming on and taking time out to talk to me.
Well, thanks for having me on. It was
No
fun. I
problem.
enjoyed it, and I'll see you next week.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.